Some people are going to be really mad at me for this, and I'm actually okay with that. I am going to be reacting to Michael Jackson and his interview with Martin Bashir. This was for a documentary that was released, I think, back in 2005. So this is different from what I usually react to, but I feel like I need to talk about this because a lot of people don't talk about it, and I think I think more people should. So I'm going to watch this from the beginning.
He deserved all the joys of life as any
And so
other
it
kid.
was that we came back to our meeting at Neverland with 12-year-old Gavin. I'd found this easily the most disturbing moment of the past 8 months.
Yeah, I would consider that unusual at the very best, and creepy and manipulative at the very worst. There is no reason for a grown man to be holding hands like that with a kid that he isn't related to. There's really no good reason for it. I don't care what people say. It's weird.
And they say, is that really appropriate?
When you're talking about children, we met
It's not appropriate. It's just not appropriate.
Gavin. And it was a great privilege to meet Gavin because he's had a lot of suffering in his life.
Yeah, suffering that Michael Jackson will contribute to later on.
When Gavin was there, he talked about the fact that he shares your bedroom.
Yes.
Can you understand why people would worry about
That's a creepy way of saying yes.
that?
Because they're ignorant.
But is it really appropriate for a 44-year-old man to share a bedroom with a child who is not related to him at all?
That's a beautiful thing.
It's not appropriate because to me there's no good reason for a man to share his bedroom with unrelated children. In most cases. I think the only scenario in which it might be appropriate is if there's like an emergency or something and the child has to use that bedroom, but the man would have to sleep in some other room for it to be appropriate. But in the context in which Michael Jackson had these sleepovers, we all know that that didn't happen. Michael Jackson was in the bedroom, and in most cases he was in the bed with the child, which is weird. At the very least, it's suspicious. Because what motivation is there from a grown man to be sleeping with a child? Even if the child is related to him, but especially if the child's not related to him.
That's not a worrying thing?
Why should it be worrying? Who's the criminal? Who's Jack the Ripper in the room?
I mean, you apparently. I mean, you've been dead for many, many years, so it's not like you can face any punishment now. But apparently you were the criminal because numerous people have come forward claiming that you groomed them and that you sexually abused them. So yeah, you are the criminal apparently. So this aged pretty badly.
This is a guy trying to heal a child.
And you help a child by sleeping with them. Interesting. That's your way of helping.
I'm sleeping in a sleeping bag on the floor. I gave him the bed.
This isn't what happened in most cases. It's possible that he did sleep in another bed or on the floor, but in many cases, he slept in the bed with the child. So he's lying by making it seem like what happened most times was that he slept on the floor, when we all know that the majority of the time he slept in the bed with the child.
Because he has a brother named Star. So him and Star took the bed, and I'm on the floor in the sleeping bag.
Did you ever sleep in the bed with them?
No.
Why?
But I have slept in the bed with many children.
Okay, so let's imagine that this isn't Michael Jackson. Let's imagine that this is some random guy saying, I sleep with children in my bed. Your first reaction would be suspicion. Why is this grown man sleeping in a bed with children that aren't related to him? What possible motivation could he have that isn't creepy or related to molestation? And in the majority of cases, that is the intention, is to groom the child to further engage in sexual abuse. But people, because it's Michael Jackson, and people still are obsessed with him, and they have this parasocial relationship with a guy who's been dead for like 15 years, they refuse to acknowledge that at the very best, it's suspicious.
Sleeping in bed with all of them. When Macaulay Culkin were little, Kieran Culkin would sleep on this side, Macaulay Culkin's on this side, his sister's in there. We're all just jamming the bed.
That's still weird. Like, you make it sound like because it's a group of kids sleeping in the bed with you, that somehow makes it less suspicious. And it doesn't.
Then we wake up like dawn and go in a hot air balloon. You know, we have the footage.
It's still creepy.
I have all that footage.
But is that right, Michael?
It's very right. It's very loving. That's what the world needs now. More.
How is it loving? How is sleeping with someone that you're not related to loving? I don't get that. In 9 times out of 10, if a grown man is sleeping with a child, it's because he has sexually abused her or him, or is planning to in the future. That's the majority of cases.
More love, more.
The world needs
heart.
The world needs a man who's 44 sleeping in a bed with.
Martin Bashir is completely right here. Regardless of what you think about Martin Bashir or think of him as a person, he is completely right here. And people just don't like to hear it because, again, they have this parasocial relationship with Michael Jackson.
With children.
No, you're making it all wrong.
Well, tell me, help me.
Because what's wrong with sharing a love? You don't sleep with the.
So I've for a while I've thought that Michael Jackson, his perspective of love is very wrong because, well, I believe Michael Jackson's a pedophile, and I've believed this for a couple years now, that a lot of pedophiles think that what they're doing is love. Like, they genuinely believe that, and that they groom the child to believe that too. And so Michael Jackson's perspective of what love is includes sexual abuse.
Your kids or some other kid who needs love, who didn't have a good childhood?
No, I don't.
I love how he's talking about love and giving love, but apparently, if you look into many of the testimonies of the people who are now coming forward about Michael Jackson abusing them as children, they'll usually say that after a certain age, Michael Jackson loses interest in them and moves on to another young friend. For example, Jimmy Safechuck talks about it. Wade Robson talks about it. That isn't very loving. So I think it's ironic that Michael Jackson here talks about giving love, when in reality, when the kids got too old, he was over them and he moved on from them and they had no use for him anymore. And so he moved on. That isn't very loving at all.
I would never dream of sleeping. I would never dream.
Because you've never been where I've been mentally.
Here we go. I never had a childhood. So your logic is that you never had a childhood, so that allows you to steal other kids' childhoods by sexually abusing them and grooming them and manipulating them. There's plenty of people who have had bad childhoods and abusive childhoods, but they did not go out sleeping with kids. That is not a normal reaction to having a bad childhood or wanting to relive your childhood.
What do you think people would say if I said, well, I've invited some of my daughter's friends round or my son's friends round, and they're going to sleep in the bed with me tonight.
That's fine.
What do you think their parents would say?
Well, I mean, to Michael Jackson, it's probably not a big deal, considering a lot of the other things that he did, allegedly, to his victims. Sharing the bed and sleeping in the bed is pretty tame.
If they're wacky, they would say you can't. But if you're
They're wacky. If they had common sense, they would be suspicious.
close family, like your family, you know them well, but
Michael, I wouldn't like my children to sleep in anybody else's bed.
well, I wouldn't mind if I knew the person well, and if I'm very close to Barry Gibb, Paris and Prince can stay with him anytime.
So you wouldn't be questioning why an adult would want your kids sleeping in the bed with them? The suspicion wouldn't even cross your mind? Even if you think Michael Jackson wasn't a pedophile, you have to admit he was pretty naive and, dare I say, a little dumb.
My children sleep with other people all the time.
And you're happy with that?
I'm fine with it. They're honest. They're sweet people. They're not Jack.
Well, just because someone is a sweet and nice person or has a sweet and nice public image, doesn't mean that they can't be a child molester. It takes one to know one, doesn't it?
The Ripper.
I suppose the problem for
I
me...
love how he keeps using Jack the Ripper as an example and not like a pedophile. Because if he used a pedophile, it is too close. It reminds him too much of himself. So he has to use Jack the Ripper as an example.
Many people is what happened in 1993, or what didn't happen.
What didn't happen?
Just cast your mind back. What was that like when you first heard the allegations that were being made against you?
It was shocking, and I'm not allowed to talk about this by way of law. So,
But how did you feel about what was being said? I'm not asking you to talk about what was said.
I was shocked because God knows in my heart how much I adore children.
But isn't that precisely the problem? That when
Yeah, like I said, Michael Jackson's perspective of love and what loving children entailed was very skewed because he was a pedophile. I've believed this for years. Watching the Leaving Neverland documentary in 2019 confirmed what I already was kind of feeling about him for a while, is that a lot of pedophiles genuinely don't think they're doing anything wrong. They believe that they are showing their love through molesting children.
when you actually invite children into your bed, you never know what's going to happen.
But when you say bed, you're thinking sexual. They make that sexual. It's not sexual.
People make it sexual because in most cases it is sexual. In the majority of situations where a grown man or a woman, but most convicted sex offenders are men, are sharing are sleeping in a bed with a child, in majority of scenarios, it is sexual. Sexual abuse occurred. It isn't because that's what people want to believe, it's because that's what usually happens.
But we're going to sleep. I tuck them in. I put a little music on, and do a little storytelling. I read a book. It's very sweet. Put the fireplace on.
Well, you're lying. But for people who don't know, Michael Jackson slept with many children, and he often manipulated the parents into letting him sleep with their children, and would cry and would basically throw a tantrum. Now, you have to ask yourself, even if you believe Michael Jackson was innocent, if his intentions were really good, why would he be acting like that? Why would he be so desperate to sleep with these children if his intentions were so pure? You have to ask yourself that. This is something that June Chandler testified about in court. So this isn't, and there's no way that she was lying in court about this. So you have to ask yourself why.
Hot milk. We have little cookies. It's very charming. Very sweet.
Sure.
It's what the whole world should do.
So that's my reaction to that video about Michael Jackson. I know that some people are going to be mad at me for sharing my honest opinion, but I don't know what to say. But like and subscribe, and of course, share your feedback. And yeah, thanks for watching.